Dr. John Delony, welcome to the Hack
What's
Your
up,
Life
brother
podcast.
Isaiah? How are you, man?
I'm well. I'm well. It was good to talk with you for a quick minute there. Yeah, like I said, I'm actually going to Nashville down by you this next week, and maybe if I have some extra time, I'll stop by.
Come on, man. Come on over.
Awesome. Well, hey, really excited to talk with you about a subject I think is something that is a popular subject, but I think the way that you talk about it is not something that is the popular subject, if you will. And I think it's something that we really have to talk about because when we reframe the way we talk about this, it changes our perspective completely. And that subject obviously being anxiety. And so to lay some groundwork for this, can you just kind of define it how you would in that being anxiety?
Yeah. So, anxiety is not a disease, and it doesn't mean your brain's broken. Usually, anxiety means your brain's working great. So the way I describe it, all anxiety is, man, it's a fire alarm. It's an alarm system in your body that lets you know that you're in a place that's not safe, that your body recognizes is not safe. You're in a situation or a future that you feel like you have no control over, or you're disconnected from other people. And I think it's got some ancient roots. Like if you woke up on the plains 10,000 years ago and your tribe had left you, you're probably going to die, right? Or if you're in a situation where you're not safe, you want your alarms to go off. And as you mentioned, like the conventional wisdom is, how do we shut those alarms off? How do we get our bodies to stop reacting? And what I want people to do, man, is stop doing that. Start listening to what your body's trying to tell you, man.
Yeah.
If your alarms are going off, that probably means you're in an unsafe situation, or you don't have community or connection, or you are heading off into a situation where you have completely no control, and you need to find some ways to walk yourself back some.
Yeah. I love that. And as I was preparing the notes, I just thought about even with like a car. So if you have your check engine light come on, I'm notoriously bad at letting that go. But it's like, you might have just some noise going on the first 2 months, but then that noise turns into something else. And then, as we ignore those signs, it gets a lot worse. And so I think in my own life, I can look back on times and think, man, if I would have just looked at the problem itself opposed to just trying to suppress, the alarm, I would have been way better off and saved myself, years even.
Right.
And so
and anxiety and depression are on the same trend line, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
you spend all your energy trying to duct tape a pillow around the alarm or take the batteries out.
Yep.
And then you end up eating another Twinkie or another donut and you watch another Netflix series, and you skip that one group of friends getting together, and all of a sudden, man, you are out, or you're wiped out, right?
Yeah. Why is that our knee-jerk reaction? Why do we always tend to go straight to, going and suppressing the alarm opposed to fixing the actual problem?
I think it goes back to what I would call the ancient wiring, the fight or the flight or the freeze, right? And when those alarms go off, your brain actually turns your frontal lobe off. It turns it turns down the signaling of the part of your brain that makes rational, intelligent decisions. It didn't want you 10,000 years ago sitting in front of your cave being like, I wonder if that's a nice bear. That's the huggy kind. It wanted you just to run, because if you waited, you got eaten, right?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't want you asking questions or thinking. And it quickly divides the world up into us and them, who's on my team and who's not on my team. And if you think about how the world's divided itself up, we just live in a very anxious time. None of us, we're totally disconnected. We live all of our lives on the internet, and we are in situations that we cannot control. Look at the latest politics stuff, right? I got one vote. That's the only play I got. I got one ping pong ball to toss. That was it. And then I had to move aside, and my whole fate, it feels like, right? And I don't know if I'm safe, because all of our media sells catastrophe. That's all it does all day long, is gives us catastrophe. So our brain divides itself into us and them, or it takes off running. And what I call running is, in our modern era, is hiding or shoving down. Another word for shoving down is to depress, right? And that's getting under the covers, and I'm just not coming out. I'm staying by myself, and there's some chemicals that respond in our brain, and it feels good and it feels safe, and we just double down and double down and double down, and suddenly another piece of pizza or another drink and another drink or another swipe right, and suddenly we are running way down the road. But that's that ancient fight or flight stuff going on there.
Yeah, without question. To go on a little bit of a different path here, in relation to trying new things. So this is obviously a podcast that's centered, around business and kind of developing a better career for yourself. And a lot of times that being, starting a small business. And I think personally in myself, there was a lot of anxiety with starting Kind's Coffee Company. And one thing even more than that was I really wanted to be a public speaker and have a voice. And I can remember vividly, I was an assistant manager at a lumber yard. This is probably 6 years ago or so. And I would conduct the meetings, the monthly meetings, right? And when I would conduct the monthly meetings, I would get this anxiety that would come over me about an hour before. I'd go out to my truck, I'd do breathing exercises, but I was literally talking to a handful of people. Yeah. And it was a chill environment. But the fact that I had to speak in front of people, whether it be, 4 to 10 people, was a big deal to me. And I think so often in my own life, and there's a lot of people that can probably attest to this, we just lean into the anxiety and don't really develop any preparation or real confidence through doing it over and over again, whether that's starting a business, failing in a business, starting again, or whether it's, speaking in public. So now, fast forward years later, I don't have any anxiety, or if I do, it's a lot less. And it's just a muscle that I build up. And as I've, got preparation, I got confidence, and I use that confidence to combat my anxiety. I actually had on Dalton Reisner, who plays for the Denver Broncos, about 2 weeks ago on, and he was talking about how that helps him on Sunday. So if I know that I am completely equipped and prepared for Sunday, I don't have that anxiety. And I think so many times, like I said, we lean into that opposed to focus on that preparation. And as we focus on the preparation, that anxiety subsides at least considerably. So can we maybe just talk about, the importance of preparation as we go, like you said, we go, swipe right, or take that other drink. And then we get so far along, but as we develop consistency, we can see that anxiety subside. So, maybe just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think we have a crisis of people running their mouths that don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's in our media, that's in our politicians, that's just people who we expect to know everything, or we have a culture that says you can't say, I don't know, I'll find out, right? Yeah. Then you're like, oh. And so there's this pressure to know everything or to pretend you know everything. Yeah. And what happens is you start skimming headlines, you start reading the front and back page of a book, that kind of thing. And here's the deal. Your body knows you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You got a stage, like you said, I want to have a voice. And when young people especially are like, hey, I want to have what you have, I want to have a voice. I always want to tell them the last thing on earth I wanted was a public forum. The last thing, I wanted to be a researcher. I wanted to be a nerd. I wanted to work with my students behind closed doors. And I wanted to work with executives behind closed doors, just one-on-one. This happened because it just kept happening, and it kept growing in that way, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing I think is we have to remember that our brain's got one job, and that's to get us to tomorrow. Yeah. And then to get us to the next day. So it has a vested interest in selling us on the worst possible outcome for trying something new.
Yeah.
Because it could kill us, right? So is the coffee shop, is it likely to fail? Statistically, actually, yeah. If I start a new restaurant, statistically speaking, it's going to fail. That's data we know. And we know, okay, we'll fail. We'll declare bankruptcy and we'll go about the next thing. Our brain has a vested interest in no shame, no violence, no fear, no scare. So it's going to let us know if you fail, you're a loser. You're always going to be a loser. Remember when you were 6 and your dad called you a loser, or that kid called you a loser on the playground, and it starts looping that stuff? It's got a vested interest in us getting to tomorrow. It's the same reason when we're stressed, our body will say, hey, you really need a cigarette. It'll kill us tomorrow, but today, it'll get us. It'll kill us next week, but it'll get us to tomorrow, right? Same thing with that kind of fear. And so what preparation does is it gives us firm footing. I know what I'm talking about. I actually know that if I speak and flop, they may boo me, they may not pay me, they may not have me back, but I'm not going to die. My wife still loves me, right? My friends from high school are still going to make fun of me, and then we're going to go grab something to eat together. It's that wisdom that comes with that preparation and that practice and that doing it, and also holding in 2 hands. It's probably going to be all right, but I might get knocked out if I get in the ring, right? I'm probably going to win. I might get knocked unconscious. And then you're going to go about your day, right?
Right. Yeah. No, that's so valuable. And I've heard it said a lot of times, you know, people talk about how with sugar and that kind of thing, it's like, you know, it's our body, you know, wanting that, you know, from all the way back when, and we've just developed, you know, that if we have something sweet, then eat it and that kind of thing. I think the same is true for, you know, if your dad said that you were, you know, a loser when you were 6, we use that as a defense. So is there a way we can kind of play off of that defense, whether it's in business or in our personal lives, to develop, you know, a strength, but at the same time have those things not hold us back and just cripple us with anxiety?
Yeah, I think it's split in the middle here. Both sides of the intellectual and political circles are lying to us right now. One says, screw your feelings, they're not real. Data only, plow ahead. And that's stupid. That is a lifetime of inflammation. You're going to die young. You're going to get cancer. You're going to die of a brain aneurysm. There's too much research saying if you squash who you are and how you feel and your emotions on things, you're going to die young. Okay. And you're going to hurt everybody around you. The other side of that is whatever I feel is my truth, and my truth is what is, and so be it. And that's stupid too, because there is some facts on planet Earth. There is some data, right? And so what I want folks to do when they're having those moments when they can feel it to start spin up, I want people to feel their feelings, write them down, and then demand evidence for them. And what you do is you stop saying, anger isn't an identity. It's a thing that's happening, right? And I can back out of it a little bit. Fear of starting a new business isn't me. It's a thing that's happening. I can back out, and then I can say, okay, can I fail? Potentially. Yeah. Have I done everything I can? I met with all the coffee shop owners in this area. I've looked at the market research. I've done the math on how many cups of coffee I'm going to have to sell every day. And I know what I'm going to do. I'm ready to get in the ring. I've trained as hard as I can for this upcoming fight. And then so you go through and you demand evidence from those feelings, and then you make a empirical decision about moving forward. And that honors your body, the part of that's trying to protect you. And that also honors reality, which is, I probably shouldn't open a coffee shop. I really want to so bad. That's my dream. I probably shouldn't open one, man. Or I'm super terrified to quit my job of 20 years in education, the last 16. I worked all these years. I got 2 PhDs to get all the way to the top of the college hierarchy. I'm going to quit all of that and go be an idiot on a radio show, right? I'm going to quit all of it and go do that. But you look at the data, you feel your feelings, you demand evidence, and then you can start making decisions. And when you do that, your body doesn't have the need to rattle all those alarms off because it knows you're safe now, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to get other people in your community and mentors, other people to look at that data with you when I can't be objective about it. I really, really, really want to have this coffee shop. That's when I call my buddy and he's like, don't do that, man. Right. Or he's like, I went home to Texas right before I took this job, and I talked to some buddies and we laid it out, and they said, this sounds crazy and this sounds right. And that, right. So my community affirmed my calling in this thing. And so all I have to say is you got to do both.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so powerful. Question I wanted to ask you, and this is honestly something that I have thought before when I've watched you guys and your platform, but do you ever get anxious, you know, before a show or when you first started? And then, you know, if you did, or maybe if it wasn't, you know, this venture, it was another venture, is there any practices that you utilize, you know, to help you not get so anxious? Because I know for me, there's been times where I've had to practice certain things to get out of my body. You know, if I'm getting ready to speak or if I'm getting ready to do something that, you know, maybe it's a conversation that I'm anxious about beforehand, I know, okay, I want to make sure that I get in a room by myself. I want to make sure that I'm doing, you know, A, B, and C before going to make sure that, you know, the anxiety might still be there and it still might be in, you know, the car with me, but I'm not going to let it, you know, drive the car and go off road, if you will.
Right.
And so is there anything that you've, you know, done in your past or even right now that you implement to kind of help that anxiety?
When it comes to the speaking part and the sitting with people in hard moments part, I think that goes back to, I know this has been scientifically disproven, but it's just a metaphor. That goes back to the Gladwell's 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
I don't get my heart rate up when I'm meeting with somebody who's hurting. I've just done that so long, or I've been on a stage since I was 12. And so the going up on stage part doesn't make me nervous. If I'm going up there and there's 5,000 people, there's what I call that healthy energy. And it's something that the only way I can describe it is I used to train with some MMA fighters, and then a couple of them went pro. They loved being in a fist fight. And I loved the chess match. I loved jujitsu. I loved trying to figure it out. They loved fighting. And I remember there was like, oh, we're not the same, right? I remember
Right.
that. And so for me, that when it takes over that, hey, you're about to walk on stage and there's 5,000 people out there, don't screw this up. There's something about that that is so life-giving and energetic that I wish I could bestow upon everybody because it's so fun. My wife gets that, and it is, now she's a great public speaker, a great teacher. She would do awesome at it, but it's something she's got to get through, not something that she lives for, right? And I think it's just knowing how do you respond to that? When it came to the radio, dude, the first time I was ever on a radio station, on a radio show, was in front of 17,000 people live. And yeah, brother, I was puckered up and I screwed up. I screwed up the call. They called and I blanked. I was like, I don't know what to say. And it was just sparring sessions, man. And it was just getting back in there and getting back in there. And then going back to what you said earlier, you got to know what you're talking about. So how can I know what I'm talking about inside this particular medium? How do I hit that clock? How do I push this button at the right time and listen to the music fading out? You just practice and practice, but it comes down to that core. Do you know what you're talking about?
Yeah. No, I honestly, not to go back to what we were talking about, but I think people underestimate reps and the power of it. And I'll share a really quick story that I've shared, I think, before on this podcast. But I was in Central America one time and we were doing some marketing for an event, and it was national radio, live. And fortunately, it's a Spanish speaking country, but still a lot of them speak English. And I did the same thing. It was my wife spoke and she did her thing. She killed it. I get up and I'm like, Roebuck, just say your name. And I go, hello, what did I say? Something like, I'm Isaiah's husband. And I was like, oh no. And I remember going back, and I tell this story because I thought to myself, I'm never going to speak again. I'm never going to get on a radio show again. I'm never even going to show my face again. I'm just going to be the guy behind the scenes. And what I did, though, was I went back and I got on podcasts. And, even if it was awkward for me, I would continue doing them. Or, even if it was a conversation that I was anxious about, have those conversations. And the more I did them, the better it got. So I just want to encourage anybody listening, whether you are a business owner or whether you're deathly afraid of even speaking one-on-one to somebody, if you lean into that and get those reps in, it goes a long way. Last thing I want to talk about is isolation. And this is specific as well, a lot of times to business owners, but with anxiety, our knee-jerk reaction can be just to isolate. Or we talked about how depression and anxiety kind of go hand in hand. When we get depressed, our knee-jerk reaction can just be to isolate. So can you maybe just talk to us about, why we do that so often and how detrimental it is for our business leaders to reach out and get counsel, get mentorship when we have those feelings of getting isolated?
Yeah. In fact, if you were to ask me what's the great demon of the 21st century, I would tell you it's loneliness. And I've researched and worked with lawyers and doctors and medical professionals and academic presidents and leaders and ministers, with the folks, business leaders, folks who have quote unquote made it behind closed doors. And those that have a community around them hang in there for the long term. Those that don't, they implode. They hurt everybody around them. They get addicted to sex or drugs or busyness or another client. They get addicted to the high of a sale and a sale and a sale. It's a loop that never stops, because the only thing that stops that anxiety, that discomfort, that addiction is other people. It's what slows your brain down, that says you're okay and you're safe and you're in your gang. You may not be able to control tomorrow, but you all have each other, right? And so any business leader, any executive, anybody entering enterprise, the number one thing you do before you get your performa down, before you sit down and write your dream goals, whatever, is you get a group, you get a gang. You have to have people in your life. And I've eyed some really big dogs and men and women who are really fancy. And I've told them to their face, you are too lonely. You're going to hurt everybody that you're trying to lead. You're going to hurt every one of them. In my interview with Dave Ramsey himself, I asked him point blank, who are the people that hold you accountable? Who do you listen to? And he rattled off a bunch of people that will call him and say, hey, you shouldn't have said that. We don't appreciate that. Why don't you look at it this way? And I said, him and I are going to disagree. We're going to disagree a lot. But I trust that he's got people in his life to speak to him the same as I've got people to speak to me. So that is what, when you distill it all down, we've got a culture of loneliness. We have a culture of talking to each other on the computer or on our phones instead of being with each other. And man, you've got to not fall to that default of isolation. I am the king of isolation. Dude, I've perfected being alone in a crowded room. I can be alone at a dinner table, just disappear in myself, right? And you've got to have people, like my wife will call me out. She's like, hey, where are you? You're not with us, right? You got to have people that will bring you back and bring you back and bring you back.
Yeah, I think it goes back. Anything we do, we just got to learn to, if we have a knee-jerk reaction to go here. I'm the same way, there's been times where I've been anxious and then I'll just dip out, and go in another room. But we got to learn to just get connected.
And think about this. If your body is letting you know you're disconnected and your response to that alarm is to disconnect further, the alarm is just going to get louder. It's just going to get louder. And you're going to have to go to further extremes to shut it off. You're going to have another drink, and you're going to have to watch another Netflix series and skip another meeting and avoid your kids for another hour. You're going to have to keep upping the ante to silence that ever louder alarm. And so, do the opposite of what your body wants. You want to grab that cookie? Especially don't now, right?
Yeah.
Said the guy that just grabbed some candy on the way up here to this meeting.
No, yeah, it's so valuable. Yeah, I heard you talk about in an interview how you pay the price. So it's like, it's easy right then to just kind of up the ante, but then you get to a certain point and your body is going to have to pay.
It's all pain, dude. You get to decide, do you want it now in a small increment, or do you want it bigger later? Wow. And do you want everyone else to hurt with you? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Great way to end it. I'm not kidding. Thank you so much. I have enjoyed listening to the commentary. I don't know how much preparation I did, but honestly, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think people need to hear this because, again, it's countercultural. We hear so often to just, you have anxiety, take this pill. You know what I mean? I've gone to the doctor. Hey, you got anxiety, boom. And it doesn't really help it. But as you redefine it and you redefine the structure of the pattern of your life and how you deal with anxiety, that's where we see victory with it. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for writing the book. Guys, make sure to get the book, Redefining Anxiety, out now. It will change your life. Thank you. Thanks, again.
Brother. I appreciate you, Isaiah. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, man. Take care and best of luck. Come see me in Nashville.